stepped into the kitchen after dinner, still wiping my hands on the dish towel. When I saw him there alone, my father-in-law, sleeves rolled up, those strong forearms glistening under the warm light as he scrubbed the heavy cast-iron pan. The scent of garlic and soy sauce still hung thick in the air, mixing with the faint, clean smell of his old-fashioned aftershave. My heart gave an unexpected lurch at the sight of his broad back, the way his shirt stretched across his shoulders. This was wrong. I was just helping clear up like any good daughter-in-law. I should have turned around right then. Walked back to the living room where my husband sat laughing at some show on TV, but my feet stayed planted. He didn't notice me at first, lost in the steady rhythm of cleaning, water running over his hands. Something about the quiet focus in his movements pulled at me, or made the air feel heavier than it should. The next evening I offered to help with the dishes again. Told myself it was only polite. Our elbows brushed as we stood side by side at the sink. Warm water running over our hands. His quiet "thank you, dear" sent a small shiver through me, low and unexpected, like a secret slipping under my skin. I kept my eyes on the plates, but I could feel the solid warmth of him so close. Just family. My husband was right upstairs watching TV. Yet that brief touch lingered on my skin like a secret I wasn't supposed to keep. I told myself it was nothing. He was twice my age. He was my husband's father. The kind of man who fixed things around the house without being asked, who still called me dear in that gentle way that made me feel seen. But standing there, our arms almost touching with every pass of a glass, I felt my breath catch in ways it shouldn't. The steam rose between us, carrying that aftershave again, mixing with the soap. I swallowed hard. This is ridiculous. Stopped noticing. Later that night, lying beside my sleeping husband, the memory of those forearms kept returning, uninvited, persistent. He est twice my age. He est my husband's father. This is disgusting. I turned over, pulling the blanket tighter, trying to push the thought away. But my body remembered the solid warmth of him next to me at the sink. The way the light caught on his skin, a low heat spread through my belly, slow and treacherous, like something melting I couldn't name. I stared at the ceiling, heart beating too loud in the quiet room. It was just tiredness after a long day. That's all it was, had to be. I closed my eyes, but the image wouldn't leave. The way his shoulders moved under that worn shirt, the quiet strength in his hands. My husband shifted beside me, breathing deep and even, completely unaware. Guilt twisted in my chest, sharp and cold. But underneath it, something warmer flickered, something hungry. I pressed my face into the pillow, whispering to myself in the dark, "This can't happen. I won't let it." Yet even as I said the words, my mind drifted back to the kitchen, to the way he hadn't pulled away when our elbows touched, to the soft tremble of his voice saying thank you. I hated how my skin still tingled from the memory, hated how alive it made me feel in a house that had started to feel routine. My husband was a good man, kind, safe, but safe didn't make my pulse race like that stolen moment at the sink. Safe didn't leave me lying here, aching with questions I had no right to ask. I turned again, careful not to wake him. The clock glowed right in the darkness, hours still until morning, and already I was wondering what it would feel like to stand there again tomorrow night. Side by side, close enough to feel the heat from his body cutting through the steam. Close enough that one small movement could change everything. God help me. I already knew I'd offer to help with the dishes again. By the third night, helping in the kitchen had become our quiet routine. He hummed an old folk song under his breath while chopping vegetables, the same melody my husband used to sing when we first dated. Our hands touched again, passing a knife, and this time neither of us pulled away quickly. The texture of his rough, calloused palm against my smooth one anchored the moment in my mind, lingering like a whisper I couldn't shake. I felt the warmth travel up my arm, slow and steady, settling somewhere deep I had no business noticing. He kept humming, eyes on the cutting board, but I saw the faint smile at the corner of his mouth. Just family helping family, I told myself. Yet my pulse had already quickened, betraying me with every shared breath in that small space. My husband left for a week-long business trip the next morning, kissing me goodbye at the door and casually saying, "Take care of Dad while I'm gone." Chi's been lonely since Mom passed." His words hung in the air as I waved him off, the house suddenly feeling larger and emptier than before. The quiet pressed in from all sides, fulfilling my husband's request. It's only natural to keep him company. The water ran warm between us, steam curling up like a secret we hadn't named. Our elbows brushed again, but this time it felt heavier, more deliberate. I focused on the plates, wiping them dry with careful strokes, yet every time he passed me a glass, our fingers met for that extra second. His voice was low when he spoke, asking about my day, and I answered too softly, my words almost lost in the running water. The house felt emptier without my husband's footsteps upstairs. Just the two of us, side by side, the clink of dishes the only sound breaking the silence. I caught myself leaning a little closer to hear him better, telling myself it was nothing more than politeness, but the air between us had thickened, carrying the faint scent of his aftershave mixed with the soap, wrapping around me like an invisible pull. His shirt was damp from the steam, clinging slightly to his chest in a way that made it hard not to look. I caught myself staring at the gray hairs peeking from his open collar, the way they caught the light from the overhead lamp. When he reached for a high shelf, his body pressed lightly against mine for a second, just long enough for my breath to catch in my throat. "Stop it. This is your father-in-law." The thought sliced through me sharp and cold, but it couldn't drown out the sudden warmth spreading low in my belly. His scent, that mix of aftershave and dish soap. Now it triggered something deeper, warmer, forbidden. I stepped back quickly, drying the same glass twice, my hands trembling just a little. He didn't seem to notice, or if he did, he didn't say anything. Instead, he handed me another plate, our eyes meeting for a heartbeat longer than necessary. I swallowed hard, forcing a small smile, pretending my cheeks weren't flushed from more than the steam. The humming resumed, softer now, filling the space between us like an invitation I knew I should ignore. Yet as we worked, the routine felt less like duty and more like a dangerous comfort. Every small touch, every shared glance, built something inside me I couldn't name without shame. I was supposed to be missing my husband, counting the days until he returned. Instead, I found myself wondering how it would feel to stand here again tomorrow, the house still empty, the steam still rising, his presence still so close it made my skin hum with awareness. The guilt twisted in my chest, reminding me who I was, but underneath it something else stirred, a quiet hunger that grew with every passing minute in that kitchen. I dried the last dish, setting it down with more care than needed, my mind already racing ahead to the next evening. What if I offered to help again? What if the touches lingered even longer? He turned off the water, wiping his hands on a towel, and for a moment we just stood there, the kitchen suddenly too small, the silence too loud with everything unsaid. My heart pounded as I met his gaze one last time before turning away, the ache of it almost nothing pressing against my ribs like a promise I wasn't ready to break. Or keep. I walked out of the kitchen slowly, feeling his eyes on my back, the weight of the evening settling over me like a secret I could no longer pretend didn't exist. Tomorrow night loomed ahead, empty house and all, and already I knew I'd be right back here. Drawn by something far stronger than duty, I slipped into my bedroom that night, the door clicking shut behind me like a judgment I couldn't escape. What kind of woman was I? Fantasizing about my husband's father while he worked late shifts, sacrificing sleep just to keep us comfortable. My hands clutched the edge of the blanket, knuckles whitening, as if holding on tighter could push the memory of his low humming out of my head. Yet the craving refused to leave. It sat heavy in my chest, breathing with me, growing warmer with every slow inhale. I turned onto my side, pressing my face into the pillow, but all I could feel was the ghost of that almost nothing from earlier. The way the air had thickened between us. "Stop, this isn't you." The words rang sharp inside me, cold water over heated skin, but they only made the pull stronger, like a storm cloud refusing to break. My husband's face flashed in my mind, tired but kind, and shame flooded me so fiercely I nearly gasped aloud. Still, my body remembered the damp cling of his shirt, the faint trace of aftershave that lingered even after Id left the room. I squeezed my eyes shut, willing sleep to come, but the hunger stirred deeper, patient and alive, whispering that tomorrow was only hours away. The next evening arrived quickly. And small spill happened near the sink, sauce from the roast catching on my wrist as I reached for a cloth. He noticed before I did. His thumb moved slowly, deliberately, wiping the spot away with careful strokes that sent a spark racing straight up my arm. Neither of us spoke. The touch stayed there, warm and slightly rough from years of work, pressing just enough to make my pulse stumble. I forgot how to breathe for a second, the kitchen lights suddenly to bright, the quiet to loud with everything we weren't saying. "Thank you," I whispered, my voice trembling like a secret I wished I could take back. Just family helping family, nothing more. But the electricity hummed under my skin long after his hand had pulled away, leaving a trail of heat that refused to fade. I told myself it was harmless. The kind of small kindness that happens in any home. Yet as I dried the next plate, my wrist still tingled where his thumb had been, and I caught myself glancing at his hands again. Strong, steady, moving through the suds with a rhythm that felt too intimate in the empty house. The gilt gnawed at the edges, but it couldn't quite reach the center where that warmth had settled, soft and insistent, like honey melting on the tongue. Later, alone in the bathroom, I stood staring at my reflection under the harsh overhead light. My cheeks still carried a faint flush that had nothing to do with the steam from earlier. My husband had been so distant these past months. Quick goodbyes on the phone, his mind always elsewhere, even when he was home. But his father noticed, really noticed. The way he asked about my day, the quiet way he made space for me at the counter. This is repayment, I thought, for all those lonely nights when I lay awake wondering if I was even seen anymore. The justification settled warm in my chest, loosening something tight I hadn't realized was there. It felt almost like relief. Like permission I'd been waiting for without knowing it. My fingers traced the edge of the sink as I leaned closer to the mirror, breath fogging the glass just a little. Tomorrow night I could wear something lighter. Nothing obvious, just a thin blouse that caught the breeze from the open window, something that wouldn't feel so heavy in the warm kitchen air. The thought sent a shiver through me, half fear, half something sweeter and more dangerous. I turned off the light quickly, but the decision had already taken root, blooming quietly in the dark. That night in bed the guilt crashed over me again. Colder this time, but the craving only grew, stretching like a living thing that knew my weaknesses better than I did. I lay there listening to the house settle around me, every creak pulling my thoughts back to the kitchen, to the way his presence filled the space without demanding anything. My hand rested on my stomach, feeling the rise and fall of breaths that came too fast. Too aware, what was I becoming? The question hung there unanswered, as sleep finally pulled me under. But even in dreams the humming followed, low and close, promising nothing and everything at once. The next morning I woke with that same ache lingering low and unresolved, my mind already drifting toward evening, toward the routine that no longer felt routine at all. I chose the lighter top without letting myself think too hard about why, the fabric soft against my skin as I moved through the day. By the time dinner ended and the dishes waited, the house felt charged, every shadow holding its breath. I stepped toward the kitchen, knowing full well I was walking into something I couldn't yet name. And the pull was stronger than any voice telling me to turn back. That night the kitchen felt smaller than ever, the walls pressing in like they knew what we were pretending not to. Steam still rose from the sink in lazy curls, carrying the faint scent of garlic and red wine from dinner, and underneath it all, his aftershave. Warm cedar and something deeper, like old books left in sunlight. I reached for the last bowl on the high shelf, and his hand came around me to help. Palm settling for one heartbeat too long at the small of my back. I didn't step away. Instead my body leaned in, just a fraction. Enough to feel the solid heat of him through his thin shirt. Our eyes met. Held. The old folk song on the radio drifted between us. Soft strings and a woman's voice singing about lost roads, and everything narrowed to the heavy thud of my heart and the slow, undeniable gravity pulling us closer. His fingers brushed up my arm then, light as breath, tracing a path that left fire in its wake. He murmured my name, low and rough, the sound curling around my ribs like smoke. My lips parted without permission, pulse racing so hard I could feel it in my throat. The air thickened, heavy with dinner remnants and the nearness of him, until I forgot how to breathe normally. He leaned in slow enough that I could have stopped it, close enough that I tasted the faint sweetness of wine on his exhale. My mind screamed to pull back, to remember whose house this was, whose son slept miles away in a cold hotel bed. But my body had already surrendered to the ache, trembling with a hunger I couldn't name and couldn't deny. Just as his mouth hovered a breath from mine, the phone shattered the quiet from the other room. Sharp, insistent, my husband's ringtone cutting through like cold water. We froze, breath still mingling, warm and ragged. The almost kiss hung between us, suspended, dangerous like smoke refusing to drift away. His eyes darkened, full of the same question burning in my chest, and for one endless second neither of us moved. The ringing continued, louder now, demanding. I stepped away first, legs unsteady, and answered with a voice that didn't feel like mine at all. Hey. Everything's fine here. Dinner was good. Yes, am helping with the dishes like always. The words came out too soft, too breathless, while my father-in-law stood framed in the kitchen doorway watching me. His gaze never left my face, heavy with everything we hadn't said, everything we almost did. I could still feel the ghost of his hand on my back, the phantom warmth where his lips had nearly brushed mine. His free hand rose unconsciously to my throat, skin tingling as if branded. Hanging up, the silence rushed back in. Heavier than before. I felt raw, cracked open, every nerve awake and humming with unmet need. My skin still remembered exactly where he had almost touched more, the promise of it lingering like a bruise that hadn't formed yet. He didn't speak, just looked at me with those quiet eyes that sought him much. The same unspoken longing reflected back at me. I wanted to cross the space between us again. I wanted to finish what the phone had interrupted. Instead, I turned toward the sink, hands shaking as I picked up the dish towel once more. Tomorrow night would come. After dinner, when the house grew quiet and the radio played those same old songs, we would stand here again. Alone. I already knew I wouldn't stop helping with the dishes. I wouldn't stop stepping into this kitchen that felt smaller every evening, drawn by a pull stronger than guilt, stronger than the vows I once believed in. The ache would wait for me, patient and growing, and I would meet it with trembling steps and a heart that no longer knew how to turn back. What would happen when the almost finally became something more, I didn't know. But the question followed me out of the kitchen like a shadow whispering my name in the dark. And I carried it to bed, unresolved, burning softly beneath my skin like a secret I could no longer keep from myself.